My name is Ewine van Dischoek. I'm a professor of astronomy at Leiden Observatory in Leiden University in the Netherlands. I study how stars and planets are formed, and especially the chemistry that happens in the regions of space between the stars. But I'm also the president of the International Astronomical Union. Well, as president of the IAU, actually, I'm not so much involved with the OAD. But I find the OAD so important that I saw it as a must to learn more about the OAD. So I have been attending several of the OAD steering committees as an observer to learn more about the OAD, visiting the OAD in South Africa, but also visiting some of the regional offices. Yeah, so I think it's very important that astronomers, we realize that we are in a very fortunate position, that we have a very exciting field with some of the biggest questions that mankind asks. What is our place in the universe? Where do we come from? We are fortunate to have access to very big telescopes on Earth and in space, with which we can do our science. Very inspirational. We have great young people to work with. But we also have to give something back to society. And I see the OAD really as one of the wonderful ways of astronomy giving back to society and making sort of, in the OAD's world, the world a better place thanks to astronomy. I think that when the OAD was started 10 years ago, nobody had thought that it would grow so big. So I think this is first of all a testimony to the director. Attracting Kevin as the director was certainly one of the big achievements of the OAD. But then also how then the worldwide network was built, how to engage with so many people around the world, so many different cultures, and still make it work. Together work towards this goal of using astronomy for development. So I think rolling out that entire worldwide network, teaching the various communities how to develop projects for the OAD, I think that has been a major achievement. In terms of challenges, I think funding is always one of the challenges, and that's something that we actually can work on together with the OAD from the IAU officers and executive committee to help find new resources for the OAD, because there's so many good plans out there. I think the other challenge will be to keep up the momentum. It's always easier to start something than to maintain it in the longer run. And so the OAD is now just in this interesting phase that it has built up the entire network. Now, I think the challenge in the next decade will be to build on that, to expand it further somewhat, but to scale up maybe some of the projects to more global flagship projects, that will be a challenge. But we're looking forward to do that together. I think that on the one hand, convincing an agency or a funder that what the OAD is doing is great, is easy because of the wonderful examples that the OAD has and the very good projects that it has done. I think the challenge is really to scale that up and make it sustainable. That is what we are working on, and that we have to do more work on. Well, one of the very special moments that I remember very well is when I was visiting the West African road in Abuja, and then also traveling on to Ghana. Because there I really started to appreciate the challenges that that particular region of Africa has. Because in order to do astronomy for development, you first need to have developed some astronomy in your country. And I saw how these regions were actually very busy also developing astronomy so that they could use actually astronomy for development. And I've seen some very beautiful examples there. They talked about the work that they are doing with the internally displaced people there. I also recall that I met with the people higher up, and then we went into a big lecture hall, and that was full with hundreds of young school children. And I gave a lecture there, and then afterwards we had 1 hour of just questions from the floor from these very young children about astronomy. Their inspiration, their enthusiasm was so great that moment will always stay with me. So I think that in 10 years' time, I hope that the OAD is as strong as it is now, and maybe even stronger. It has already been rolled out globally. There are only very few places in the world where maybe still another regional office could be established. So the whole connections worldwide have been built. I think now the next decade is for strengthening them and for having in addition to sort of the grassroots local projects, also some global projects where we can learn from each other and which also give the OAD a signature with which it can be easily identified by other groups, sciences and agencies across the world. I think also astronomy with the OAD has been trailblazing, actually, the use of a science for development, and it can thereby serve actually also as an example for other sciences. And I think that will also be a very interesting challenge to connect with the other sciences, not just the physical sciences, but maybe also the humanities, and work together and basically use what we have learned from the OAD also in other disciplines. Well, the success of the OAD has only been possible thanks to the strong support from South Africa, both at the funding agency level, the NRF, the DSI, but also locally. When I was visiting SAEO, I was really impressed by the enthusiasm of also the director of the SAEO in hosting the OAD. They were so proud of it and justifiably proud of having the OAD on their grounds. And I think this synergy of the OAD being really at an observatory where active astronomy is being conducted is fantastic, is great. And I hope we can keep it that way. Well, if you look at the next 10 years, there's a very important milestone coming up, and that is the General Assembly, which will be coming to Cape Town in 2024. I think this is an enormous opportunity for Africa in order to position itself, to grow both scientifically, but also to further spread the word of astronomy for development. So please make use of this opportunity in 2024 to build towards it. An important step has also been taken with the African Astronomical Society, and that has now been firmly founded, and there was a very successful first meeting of that just a month ago. And again, it was a good mix of both science and using astronomy for development, outreach, education. All of those elements were embedded in the program. And I think that is really where it should go. Yeah, so I remember the first time I heard about the OAD was actually from my good colleague in Leiden, George Miley, talking about astronomy for development. And I thought, astronomy for development? Isn't it development for astronomy? And then he said, no, Ewine, it's really astronomy for development. And then it started to click with me. This is what the mission is.